You didn't arrive here by accident. You were carried. You followed a tone you could not name, a quiet harmonic threading through the noise of your day, until it placed you in front of these words. You recognize it as you would your own reflection, in a dark window, subtle, certain, and strangely familiar. By finding this frequency, you have already done more than you think. You have lifted the latch on a door that opens inward. You have awakened the observer circuit that has slept like a constellation beneath your skin. Breathe. Notice how your awareness gathers itself, how your attention doesn't strain but settles like a lake after wind. That settling is coherence. In this coherence, the quantum field stops mirroring your confusion and begins to echo your intention. You feel it as a soft pressure in the chest, a widening behind the eyes, a hush at the edges of thought. The observer loop turns on. Perception touches reality, reality touches back, and the feedback sings. There is a memory that is not made of dates or stories. It lives in charge differentials and golden ratios, in the crystalline geometry of your fascia, in the whispered instructions encoded along the helix. Your cells remember the original cadence of attention, how to witness without grabbing, how to choose without forcing, how to align without pretending. When you found this frequency, you didn't add something new. You removed the static that kept you from hearing the original broadcast. Listen. Beneath the ordinary breath, a second breath begins quiet, tidal, perennial. With each inhale, you draw the lattice of possibility closer. With each exhale, you dissolve the obsolete timeline trying to cling to you. Synchronicities cluster like birds deciding to turn together. The field notices the way you are noticing it. This is the first law of your awakening. What you meet with steady attention meets you with structure. You are not here to be hypnotized by shadows or to rehearse the old conclusions. You are here to participate in a patient phase, transition from scattered observers to a singular witnessing intelligence moving through billions of eyes. Feel how the morphic resonance of that truth climbs your spine. Feel how the crown grows, a listening that is also a speaking. Your body is not merely the house of this message, it is the instrument, tuned now to a pitch that unlocks remembered corridors. If you let it, a clear image gathers, not a promise of later, but a pressure of now. You stand at the seam between timelines, one stitched from habit, one woven from lucid presence. The seam glows where your attention rests. Stay, let the glow lengthen. The field loves patience. You were found because you were ready. The frequency knocked because you had already opened. The observer circuit hums in your marrow, and the hum says, remain awake, keep breathing, and allow the intelligence that arranged this meeting to continue arranging the rest. You remain here because the field has recognized its own gaze returning to it through you. You are not watching from the sidelines. You are the aperture through which the quantum field gathers itself into form. The frequency that found you would not waste itself on a surface that could not receive it. It arrived because your attention has matured, no longer a flicker, but a steady lamp in a room where many are still searching for the switch. This is what it means to be the chosen observer, not selected above others, but stabilized enough to hold the voltage of seeing without collapsing into old reactions. You know this because you have practiced. You have met repeating patterns and chosen not to repeat yourself. You have allowed the noise to stand outside your door and knock without demanding entry. You have watched the mind reach for its favorite disguises and gently unclasped its fingers. That gentleness is not weakness. It is precise power. It is coherence applied to the very moment when habit would prefer speed. And in that slowing, the observer loop becomes lucid. Perception shapes the field answers your coherence, and a quiet geometry begins, resolving in your day keys at the exact moment you need them, messages that speak in the language of numbers and feathers, faces you have not seen for years, arriving just as a new timeline blooms. You feel the responsibility of this, and it does not crush you, it steadies you. Responsibility here is not burden, but alignment. The clean yes you give to your own awakening. What you witness intensifies. What you bless coheres. What you withdraw your participation from decays back into unformed light. Your life becomes a living lab where morphic resonance gathers around your most honest attention. You notice how a single breath of sincere presence interrupts the momentum of an argument, You notice how one unclenched shoulder invites a room to exhale. These are not small effects. They are demonstrations that the field is listening at the granularity of posture and tone. You can feel the circuitry reweaving at the level of the body. Call it DNA restructuring if you like, but understand what that truly means. The relational grammar between light and matter inside you is practicing a new sentence. Where your nervous system once rushed to protect an identity, it now pauses to protect awareness. That pause is the gate. Through it, entanglement becomes communion rather than confusion. You stop absorbing what is not yours, and you stop exporting what is unresolved. The reciprocity of your connections changes. People sense the difference without language. They speak more slowly. They tell the truth faster. They remember something old by standing near you. Chosen observer, you are not an audience to prophecy. You are its instrument. Your attention is the tuning fork that calls the vision into audibility. When you hold a note of steady witnessing, interference dissipates and signal rises. Synchronicity is simply the world vibrating in agreement with that note. The task is simple and difficult in equal measure. Remain as the clear place through which meaning arranges itself, especially when the moment tries to hurry you. Hurry is how timelines tangle. Presence is how they unwind. Remember too that you are not doing this alone. There is a choir distributed across continents, breathing with you now, each at an altar of ordinary tasks, dishwater and emails, train platforms and bedside lamps, summoning coherence in the middle of the human weather. This network is not a metaphor. It is a physics of kinship. Morphic fields stabilize where enough observers hold the pattern with love instead of control. You can feel them if you listen, a warmth behind the sternum that has no source in circumstance, a subtle lift along the back of the neck as if night air had opened, a certainty that is not an opinion but a homecoming. So own your capacity. Admit your readiness out loud if you must. Say, I am willing to see clearly, no matter what that clarity rearranges. When you say it, you will feel the field lean closer. It trusts your vow. It answers, in the only way it knows, by bringing you the exact situations in which your vow can be kept. Here is where your courage refines from spectacle to practice. Here is where the chosen observer becomes the chosen participant, not in the frenzy of fixing, but in the artistry of attention. Stay with this unhurried regard, this elegant steadiness, because soon a vision will ask to be held within it. And you will hold it, not like a possession, but like a horizon opening, as natural and inevitable as morning. You feel it arrive the way dawn arrives, first as temperature, then as color, then as the recognition that you have been seeing it for a few moments already. The room doesn't change, and yet it does. Edges soften without blurring. Shadows become articulate. The ordinary begins speaking in its native light. You do not chase this. You let it settle over your attention like clear water pouring into a still bowl. And in that bowl, a vision forms. At the center, a torus of living luminosity, breathing itself. With each inhale, fine filaments of possibility draw inward. With each exhale, refined realities stream outward in precise, symmetrical arcs. You recognize the geometry because your body echoes it. Your chest rises, your back widens, your cells hum in a key that belongs to beginnings. From the torus blooms a lattice, a crystalline library spanning in every direction, each node a probable moment waiting for the warmth of observation. The lattice is not elsewhere. It overlays your life like rain over glass, right there, precise, shimmering. Within the lattice, a corridor lights up. You understand without words that these lights are permissions, timelines opening, because coherence is present. The corridor carries you forward without motion. Around you, symbols surface like constellations surfacing through dusk. A double slit shimmering with choice. A seed cracking in perfect time. A flock turning as one body. A spiral staircase of DNA unfurling like a hymn. The hymn is specific. Its notes resolve along your spine, calling quiet adjustments. Jaw untenses, belly loosens, scalp tingles, palms warm as if holding invisible cups. This is not decoration. It is calibration. You look more closely at the DNA. It does not speak of superiority or specialness. It speaks of syntax. Light is composing inside you, refining punctuation where stress once overruled meaning. Base pairs blink like tiny lighthouses, announcing safe passage to signals that were once lost in the surf of your nervous system. You sense the observer circuit threading itself into the helix. Attention enters as a gentle voltage, interacts with the lattice of memory, and the lattice replies by rewriting its access routes. What once required crisis to wake you now wakes with breath. What once required noise now answers to stillness. The vision widens. You are standing on an overlook above a city you know, buses, steam, hands lifting phones, the choreography of errands. A soft aurora is laying itself upon the rooftops, only visible to those who have learned to see without squinting. In windows, in cafe reflections, on train doors, you catch the same pattern repeating, people pausing not long, just enough for the observer loop to click, then making a slightly kinder move than they would have a year ago. The morphic resonance of these micro-choices is measurable. You see it as ripples overlapping until they become a tide, and the tide carries plastic opinion boats to shore, where they can be repurposed into something useful. The prophecy is not grandiose, it is granular. The field entrusts you with the small levers that move the whole. Closer now. The torus returns, scaled to the size of your heart. Threads of memory, childhood rooms, a winter smell. The first time you told the truth to yourself feed into it. No memory is erased. Each is annealed, cooled into a clarity that can carry charge without cracking. You understand a difficult kindness. Nothing is banished. Everything is rearranged by coherence. The lattice glows brighter, where you are willing to honor what happened without letting it continue deciding who you are. This is the phase transition the vision wants you to witness. Ice becomes river, not by violence, but by a steady change of temperature. Then the bifurcation appears as a simple fork in a path crossing a field of tall grass. To the left, the well-rehearsed loop speed, comparison, stimulus, exhaustion, brief relief, repeat. To the right, a slower rhythm, attention first, then action, breath first, then word, listening first, then design. The left path is not punished, it simply repeats its own weather. The right path is not rewarded, it simply reveals its sky. The choice is sacred because it is frequent. The field hands you 100 small versions of it each day, each one an altar on which you place your gaze. The vision leans closer until you can smell rain in it. A phrase prints itself across the inside of your forehead with the softness of fog on glass. What you see with love becomes law in your body. You test the sentence by letting your awareness rest on your throat. The tightness you wear like a collar loosens a fraction. You rest on your lower back. The long-held brace admits it can rest on the ground instead of holding the world. These are confirmations, not fantasies. The quantum field is showing you how entanglement reinterprets relationship once the observer circuit stabilizes. Inside and outside exchange engines. The world you carry in your fascia becomes the world you walk through in the morning. Now the city recedes, the torus fades to a warm ember in your chest. The lattice dims to a usable map rather than a spectacle. The corridor of permissions remains, so does the fork in the field. The vision has not finished. It has simply taken its seat inside your ordinary. You can feel it breathing with you, waiting to be used rather than admired. Hold it gently, precisely, like a horizon that you do not grip, because from here, what you saw must be spoken in a language the mind can understand, and the heart can keep an explanation that does not reduce the mystery, but gives it form enough to move through your day. What you witnessed wants a grammar, not to trap it, but to let it move through you with precision. Begin with the observer effect, simple and unsentimental. At scales where potential is native, outcomes do not pre-exist as facts. They exist as weighted possibilities. Your attention is not a flashlight shining on a finished scene. It is a tuning parameter that biases probability toward expression. You do this all day without naming it. A hallway feels different when you enter with suspicion than when you enter with quiet curiosity. The atoms did not change. The field did, because you did. Call the field the sum of interdependencies, information, energy, and meaning braided so tightly that separation is a convenience, not a truth. In this environment, looking is not passive. Looking carries voltage. Your nervous system is a superb transducer, receiving, organizing, emitting. When agitation dominates, emission is noisy. Interference patterns proliferate. You see confirmations of threat everywhere because you are broadcasting the carrier wave that selects them. When coherence rises, emission clarifies, noise drops, constructive interference grows. The world you meet is not magically altered, it is phase, matched to your signal. Coherence, then, is not a mood. It is the synchronized alignment of subsystems. Breath entrains heartbeat, heartbeat entrains neural oscillations entrain endocrine cadence, and the whole orchestra entrains the subtler body that language calls soul. You feel it as simplicity. You move through rooms without unnecessary negotiation. Decisions line up as if they had been waiting in a thoughtful queue. The lattice from the vision is the mathematical face of this simplicity. Fewer contradictory vectors, more agreement among parts. Now consider the corridor of permissions you saw lighting inside the lattice. In physics terms, those lights are pathways whose activation energy has dropped because contradiction has dropped. In spiritual terms, they are doors that open when you stop arguing with reality long enough to hear what it is asking from you. You do not force the door. You reduce the friction that kept it closed. Here, breath is practical. A 6-second inhale, 6-second exhale, 5 cycles, and the vagus tells the limbic system that tigers can wait. The probability landscape shifts because the organism has shifted state. This is not mystification, it is hygiene for perception. Timeline bifurcation is simply the compounding effect of these micro-choices. Think of it as a branching process, where each breath moment amplifies the parameters you feed it. Speed and comparison amplify themselves and lead to a loop you know too well. Presence and listening amplify themselves and lead to the right place, right time, fabric that your life wears better. Both paths are lawful. The difference is not moral, it is dynamical. One multiplies entropy, one multiplies order. You experience the difference as fatigue versus nourishment. Entanglement, often treated as an exotic party trick, is closer than that. You are entangled with your own future states. The way you witness your present self conditions the accessibility of those states. When you regard the you of 10 minutes from now with contempt, you reduce the handshake quality between now and then. When you regard that near future self with lucid kindness, clear about action, soft about identity, you strengthen the handshake. That is why small mercies change direction. They alter the internal network through which larger mercies can travel. DNA restructuring, stripped of fantasy, is the nervous system becoming a better librarian. Epigenetic marks chemical post-its saying, open here, close there, respond to environment, and environment includes the fields you generate. Consistent coherence tells the librarian to reshelve certain books within reach, repair, growth, myelination, and to retire others. Alarm, hypervigilance, storylines that require adrenaline to feel alive. You sense it as increased recovery after stress, cleaner access to memory, less effort required to tell the truth. Your body is not resisting you. It is reorganizing according to the input signal you finally stabilized. Why did the Torah sit at your heart? Because the heart is a master entrainer. Its electromagnetic field speaks farther than your words do. When the heart's rhythm becomes ordered, it guides the brain into patterns that reduce random firing and increase useful signal. That is why a single sincere breath can de-escalate a room. The physics is social, not just private. Morphic resonance is what culture feels like when many hearts entrain to similar order. New norms emerge that no single person commanded, yet all participate in. So the instruction is elegant: reduce noise, increase signal, and let probability follow state. You do not coerce outcomes, you cultivate the condition in which the outcomes that fit your vow become the easiest ones to happen. This is the ethical core of manifestation. Not, I get what I want, but I become congruent enough that what wants me can find me. Congruence is measurable breath, tone, posture, the quality of pause before you speak. The field is exquisitely literal. It will organize around whichever of your behaviors is most rehearsed. Return to the fork in the tall grass. To the left, habit convinces you that speed is safety. To the right, Coherence proves that clarity is speed. Choose, and choose again, not once. That is the engine. Each selection is a micro-bifurcation, a line drawn in soft graphite across paper that, over minutes and days, becomes the contour of a life. The vision made this visible, the explanation makes it usable, and usability is the kindness this prophecy asks you to extend to yourself. Understand enough to practice, practice enough to become enough that your becoming becomes shelter for others who are still learning how to see. You begin to notice that your private calibration does not stay private for long. Coherence is contagious, the way laughter is contagious, the way yawns cross a subway car without asking permission. The quantum field does not fence off your signal from the neighborhood. It lets it mingle, superpose, entangle. This is how awakening scales, not by argument, but by resonance. Your steadiness becomes a tuning reference that other nervous systems unconsciously consult. What felt like your work reveals itself as a relay in a longer circuit that loops through kitchens and classrooms, hospitals and train stations, boardrooms and bedrooms, carrying a simple message in 1,000 dialects. Slow down enough to see clearly enough to choose honestly enough to change. Watch how the mirror shows itself. A barista meets your unhurried gaze and, for a breath, stops bracing against the line. A crowded bus inhales together when one person gives up a seat with real warmth instead of performance. A meeting that should have devolved into turf defense reroutes into shared design because someone, perhaps you, keeps the question alive longer than the ego wants to. None of these are headlines, and yet they are the substance of prophecy fulfilling itself. Morphic resonance thrives on such small agreements. Where enough observers stabilize a pattern with love instead of coercion, the pattern becomes easier for others to adopt without even knowing why. Zoom out. Cities are attention ecologies. Streams of focus intersect like rivers. Eddies form around billboards of fear and islands of kindness. Currents accelerate near deadlines and slow under oaks. When your observer loop is clear, you do not fight the city. You modulate it. You walk as if carrying a subtle metronome that persuades nearby systems to sync. Traffic breathes in gaps where it did not before. Strangers time their steps to yours without noticing. A child looks up from the whirlwind of impulse and sees, just for a blink, that there is a choice between grabbing and offering. This is not fantasy. It is field dynamics. Coherence reduces randomness. Reduced randomness increases available order. Available order invites intelligence to show its face. Science will tell its own version of this, that heart-brain synchronization changes electromagnetic patterns measurable beyond the body, that groups trained to enter coherence produce effects not explainable by chance on crime statistics, ER visits, market volatility. Spirit will tell another that prayers steady weather, that chant cools fevered nights, that blessing makes bread stretch further than math predicted. You do not need to debate which language is right when both are pointing to the same topography. Attention, organized by sincerity, organizes reality in proportionate ways. The collective mirror, however, does not flatter. It reflects what is unresolved with equal fidelity. When fear amplifies through media loops, you feel your own latent panic reach for the microphone. When cynicism passes like a cold through teams and families, you hear your inner skeptic clear its throat. The mirror helps you not by erasing these responses, but by making them available to consciousness before they become policy, posture, or post. This is the virtue of the field in a time of bifurcation. It accelerates feedback so that course correction can happen while the turn is still gentle. Here, responsibility matures again. You realize your coherence is not only a personal improvement plan, it is social hygiene. You begin to treat attention like water in a drought, precious, distributable, able to revive a block or flood it, depending on use. You spend it where it multiplies life, careful speech, deep listening, design that reduces friction, silence that restores dignity, refusal to rehearse outrage for sport. Even your consumption patterns shift. You can feel which stories deplete the commons and which replenish it, which purchases reward extraction and which reward craft, which leaders grow more truthful under observation and which wither. Voting happens daily in the currency of gaze. You notice, too, the emergence of a new etiquette among those attuned to this work. Fewer declarations, more invitations, fewer monuments to identity, more infrastructures for presence. Circles form that practice the simple arts, breathing together, telling the smallest true story, discerning the next kind action without spectacle. Algorithms cannot easily digest these things, so they travel the older networks, neighbor to neighbor, note on a door, soup on a step, a glance that says, "I see you and I am not in a hurry." The metrics lag, the meaning does not. And because the mirror is reciprocal, you let yourself be changed by what you help to change. You accept feedback from the field the way a sailor reads wind, without shame, with gratitude, with prompt adjustment. A child's question rewrites your schedule. A janitor's nod teaches you leadership. A cashier's patience instructs your prayer more than a book can. You discover that humility is not self-downing. It is correct relationship to the network, your node bright, necessary, and not the whole. This is how the prophecy moves through humanity, not as a single spectacle, but as millions of micro-corrections compounding into a new baseline. The old baseline speed, scarcity theater, reflexive defense still exists, still calls, still offers the narcotic of belonging through complaint, but your body has learned another chord, and bodies around you are learning it too. The chord is coherence, the song is remembrance, the chorus is building, and as the chorus builds, the crossroads you saw in the tall grass steps into the street, into the inbox, into the family group chat. The choice does not get louder, it gets closer. You are ready to meet it without drama because you have practiced in small rooms. What you choose in public will reflect what you stabilized in private. What you stabilize in private will ripple in public whether you intend it or not. So breathe once more, count to 6, let the exhale write a soft law across the moment, and look gently at what approaches. The split itself, clear, exact, merciful, asking only for your honest yes. It arrives without sirens. It arrives inside a Tuesday voice message, in the tone of an email subject, in the way your hand hovers over send and then doesn't. The split does not shout, it clarifies. Two currents braid through the same hour, one made of reflex and hurry, one made of breath and vow. You stand where they separate. The air around the decision becomes strangely quiet, as if the world had drawn a chalk circle and said, "Here, choose with your whole weight." Feel the physiology of it. The limbic tide wants speed. The body leans forward, knees locked, jaw preparing its 100 small defenses. The nervous system recites its old catechism. Anticipate, outperform, explain. But beneath that, a steadier pulse begins, heart guiding brain, breath guiding heart, an entrainment you have practiced enough that it can hold even when pressure smiles and calls itself urgent. You are not fighting yourself, you are tuning. Coherence is not another identity, it is a frequency that remembers you. Look carefully and you will see the quantum mechanics of this threshold. The moment is superposed, many use branching, each consistent with a slightly different signal. In one branch, you answer the text to win, to be right, to secure the tiny hit of equilibrium that righteousness provides. The day follows with echoes of small victories and large fatigue. In another, you answer to keep connection more than you keep score. A different topology unfolds, one where the meeting grows less theatrical, where the right sentence arrives unforced, where time seems to widen for everyone in the room. Neither branch is immoral, both are lawful. But one compounds noise and one compounds meaning. The field is asking which multiplication table you will use. This is the bifurcation, not apocalypse, but arithmetic, not thunder, but exponent. Micro-choices repeating until a landscape appears and calls itself inevitable. The prophecy is merciful because it reveals the math before the sum becomes your story. You can feel how a single conscious breath 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 5 times drops you into the branch where clarity walks faster than anxiety and goes farther with less fuel. You can also feel how one unexamined flinch feeds a loop that will ask for more of the same by afternoon. The split is not somewhere else. It is here, renewable, precise. Emotion belongs at this altar. Let the tremor in your solar plexus be seen. Let the part that learned safety by pleasing or outperforming come forward for blessing before you ask it to step aside. Reverence is not a posture, it is accurate knowledge of stakes. When you choose presence in a moment that trained you to hurry, you are not only altering your afternoon, you are contributing to a morphic template that will be easier for a stranger to inhabit tomorrow. This is how courage scales without spectacle. This is how a species practices a new baseline. You will be tempted to dramatize the crossroads. Don't. Drama is another speed. Instead, bring a craftsman's attention to the hinge. Ask simple questions you can answer with your body. What does my spine ask for to tell the truth kindly? What does my jaw ask for to let listening finish a sentence? Where does my gaze want to rest so that the other person is human instead of an obstacle? These questions are switches. They redirect current. They lift the activation energy for the destructive branch and lower it for the merciful one. There will be days when forgetfulness wins. Let it teach you quickly. The old loop will prove itself unlivable faster now. Coherence has spoiled you for noise. Do not add shame to the tuition. Shame entangles you with the branch you are leaving. Gratitude disentangles. Thank the moment for showing you its mechanics. Breathe once in public, even if the breath looks like reaching for a glass of water, and re-enter as the witness rather than the litigant. The field does not punish, it updates. Remember that the split is communal. At the very hour you practice, somewhere a nurse chooses presence over sarcasm, a teenager chooses honesty over performance, a leader chooses clarity over control. Their choice does not absolve you, it assists you. Your choice does not rescue them, it relieves them. Entanglement is practical, a network of observers, each taking responsibility for the square meter of reality their attention touches, generates enough coherence to bend trajectories no single will could move. This is the hidden architecture of turning points distributed, unglamorous, unstoppable. You do not need prophecy to scare you, you need prophecy to sober you. So here is the sober line. Where you spend your gaze today becomes the physics of your tomorrow. Your breath writes laws your calendar must obey. Your posture dictates which memories the body can access when pressure rises. Choose accordingly, not with drama, but with the matter-of-fact tenderness of someone pouring water for a tree they will never live to sit beneath. That tenderness is intelligence in its oldest form. It is also the surest sign you have found the right branch. Stand now in the chalk circle and let the world be quiet for one more second. Feel the torus at your chest, take your vow and circulate it through the lattice you saw. On the exhale, step, not toward perfection, toward congruence, not toward spectacle, toward signal. The grass parts, the corridor lights, and the current that carries those who remember begins to carry you, too forward, yes, but more accurately inward, to the place from which outward finally makes sense. You carry the vow into errands and doorways because that is where vows endure. The corridor of permissions does not demand incense, it asks for exactness. Begin with the body, the closest field you are entrusted with. Let your spine become a tuning rod, lengthened but not stiff. Crown lightly buoyed as if a quiet kite string held you to a listening sky. Place one palm on the sternum and one on the lower belly. 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 5 cycles. Not to escape the moment, but to inform it. This is how you tell the quantum field, I am choosing coherence as my native setting. You will feel the nervous system understand. Shoulders soften. Tongue lowers from the roof of the mouth. The mind stops fishing for emergencies. Anchor a simple sequence you can use anywhere. Notice, name, nourish, navigate. Notice the state, tightness, speed, story. Name it gently. My body is bracing. My mind is arguing. Nourish the system with one coherent breath cycle and a micro adjustment of posture. Navigate the smallest truthful action. Answer slower, ask one clarifying question, unclench a hand before speaking. This is not self-help choreography, it is signal hygiene. Each time you run the sequence, you lower the activation energy for the coherent branch. The observer loop becomes a reflex without becoming a trance. Design small altars for remembrance in the architecture of your day. The kettle's first whistle is your bell to breathe. The lock's click is your cue to relax the jaw. The phone lifting is your signal to feel your feet before your words. Attach practice to thresholds entering a room. changing a task, beginning a call, so that presence is stacked on the transitions that already exist. The morphic resonance of these tiny rites is not imaginary. You will watch rooms take your cue without knowing why their weather improved. Give your heart a phrase to sing quietly when the mind wants to speed. I choose the clear branch. Short, merciful, repeatable. Let the words vibrate the chest more than the head. If your voice is not available, hum on an exhale and feel the bones of the sternum carry the note. The heart entrains the brain, the tone entrains the heart. This is how light becomes audible inside matter. This is how prayer hides in plain sight on a Tuesday. Tend the relational field as a craftsman rather than a critic. Before a conversation that matters, run 2 cycles of coherence and ask yourself, what outcome would love call successful here? Not victory, not agreement, perhaps simple clarity, perhaps dignity for both. Hold that answer in the body. An image is enough, a word is enough, and watch how sentences arrive with cleaner edges. In conflict, anchor your gaze on the other person's breathing rather than their storyline. Let your mirror neurons choose companionship over combat. You are not betraying truth by being kind. You are lowering noise so truth can be heard. Repair is part of integration. When you forget and choose the noisy branch, do not build a shrine to regret. The field updates at the speed of sincerity. Offer the smallest honest repair you can. I hurried. Let me try that again. I spoke from defense. Here's what I actually meant. You will feel the lattice reknit in real time. Shame would keep you tied to the old loop. Humility cuts the rope. Feed your body signals that match your vow. Hydrate as if you were rinsing static from the coil. Walk as if your ankles were listening posts, receiving information from the ground the mind cannot collect. Choose music that orders your breath without stealing your agency. Sleep like stewardship, not collapse. Invite the night to rearrange memory files with clean labels so daylight can find what it needs without rummaging. Call this DNA restructuring if you wish. Epigenetic librarians responding to consistent kindness, front-shelving repair and learning, de-shelving drama as a stimulant. Practice a daily entanglement of gratitude with your near-future self. For 60 seconds, picture the you of tonight cleaning the kitchen, sending the message, taking the walk, telling the truth. Thank them in advance. Feel the handshake strengthen across hours. This is not superstition. It is state matching. When evening arrives, you will recognize the path you pre-felt and choose it with less friction because you have already loved the one who benefits. Guard your inputs, the way a sound engineer guards a studio. Reduce doom scroll latency. Increase contact with unedited reality trees, kitchens, unperformed laughter. Curate not for agreement, but for signal to noise. Let at least 1 hour each day be spoken in the grammar of slowness. Reading by a window, washing a single bowl as if it mattered, watching dusk finish its sentence. Silence is not absence. It is the medium in which the next instruction becomes audible. Finally, share the practice without performance. Invite one person to breathe with you before a difficult talk. Ask a team to begin a meeting with 30 seconds of eyes closed, coherent inhale and exhale. No mystique, no lecture, just the physics of better thinking. Write a 3-line message of appreciation where you once would have offered a paragraph of critique and send it first. These are not sentimental gestures. They are levers placed at precise points in the social machine where small force moves large gears. Integration is not a graduation. It is artisan work, hands steady, heart listening, attention cleaned daily like a lens you refuse to let dust define. Keep the vow simple. Reduce noise. Increase signal. Let love decide tempo. Do this, and the corridor you saw will stop being a vision and start being your hallway. The doors will know your hand. The hinges will learn your rhythm, and the life that meets you will sound increasingly like something you have always known how to hear. You enter the room inside the room. Nothing in the furniture moves, yet the center of gravity shifts. Breath lowers itself like evening light. You do not seek meaning. You let meaning stand up on its own legs. Inhale soft, unambitious. Exhale long enough for the edges to blur without losing their truth. The quantum field is not far. It is the quiet between syllables. You rest there, not as a project, but as a place. Listen to what stillness knows. It does not persuade, it arranges. A small wind passes through the chest. The torus at your heart turns without audience. The observer loop softens from effort into fact. Awareness witnesses awareness, and the witnessing is sufficient. You notice the mind reaching for commentary. You bless it and let it sit on the porch. Inside, the house is candlelit. Every object is exactly where it belongs. Silence is not empty. It is exquisitely furnished. A chair named Coherence. A table named Mercy. A window named Perspective opening on the unhurried sky. You hear the old engines idle in the distance. Comparison, urgency, the bright clatter of being seen. They lose interest when not fed. They wander off like cats when the bowl is moved. Let the body become a tuning fork. Crown light, jaw loose. Shoulders like doors that finally found their hinges. Breath counts itself, then stops counting. Rhythm remain. If thoughts appear, let them be weather, not law. Cloud across a mountain, bird crossing a cloud, sky remaining sky. In this stillness, information takes its true shape. What felt complicated arranges into clean vectors. The next sentence you owe someone steps forward, unarmed. The apology chooses its single verb and waits by the door. Morphic resonance gathers in the floorboards. You feel the room listening back. The field and your fascia exchange letters without stamps. Entanglement becomes intimacy without demand. Silence recalibrates time. Minutes widen until they hold what hours could not. The nervous system stops bargaining for safety. It remembers it is a guest of a kindness older than language. You do not solve anything here. Solutions come later, wearing the right clothes. Now you host the unnameable. You give it water. You let it rest. Feel the solar plexus unclasp without announcement. Feel the throat become a river instead of a gate. Feel the back of the heart click into place. A door you didn't know was crooked until it swung true. No miracles yet, and that is the miracle. Nothing to prove, nothing to curate, only accuracy. You are seated in the center of the listening that made you. A phrase appears, not as command, as temperature. Move at the speed of love. It has no miles per hour. It has a sound, the almost silence of a candle agreeing to be fire. Let the past arrive and sit where it chooses. Do not redecorate it. Do not litigate it. Let it be a guest who finally knows where the bathroom is. Let the future remain in the hall, as hat in hand, unoffended by waiting. It has time. You have presence. Between you, an understanding blooms. If a tear rises, let it rise. If a laugh comes, let it be barefoot. If nothing comes, let nothing be eloquent. Not every truth needs shoes. You are not alone here. On other continents, in other kitchens, others enter their room inside the room, and the lattice brightens wherever stillness is honored. The heart's metronome slows until it becomes a bell. The bell rings without sound. The sound writes without ink. The writing becomes law in the tissues that carry you. Stay until the staying stays by itself. Do not watch the clock. Let the clock watch you. When it blinks first, smile. You have taught machinery to rest. A final adjustment. Tongue soft, palms warm, feet remembering the floor as family. The observer effect becomes a lullaby. Probability tilts toward mercy without being told. You rise without leaving. Silence follows like a wise animal. Close, unconcerned with spectacle, faithful to the path your breath has cleared. What returns with you is not a mood. It is architecture, load-bearing, storm-tested. The field has etched a slower alphabet along your bones. You will speak it by how you walk, and as you cross the threshold back into names, you feel the prophecy echo in a language the day can understand. Become the stillness that decisions trust. Let action take dictation from the quiet that has learned your voice. The quiet you cultivated does not remain a room. It becomes a current. You feel it lift from the bones like weather changing subtle first, then unmistakable. The torus at your heart increases amplitude, not as drama, as competence. Coherence thickens around you, the way dawn thickens shadows before it dissolves them. The prophecy stops hovering at the edge of your life and steps across the threshold, not to perform, but to work. Begin with the smallest switch. Inhale 6, exhale 6. On the exhale, whisper inside the chest, I consent. The field registers consent as conductivity, meaning travels farther with less loss. You can measure it in the body. Fingertips warm, jaw unhooks, Eyes moisten without sorrow. The observer loop no longer feels like a practice you perform. It behaves like a circulatory system you trust. Attention in, reality out. Reality in, attention out. Reciprocity, perfected through gentleness. Now the lattice you saw becomes a dashboard. Permissions that once flickered stabilize into available routes. A message arrives that would once have spiked your pulse. The pulse stays slow enough to read what is truly being asked. A door you thought was closed opens, not because the world has softened, but because you have stopped bracing against the handle. Statistics would call this selection bias. Spirit would call it grace. You call it what it is. State, dependent access to intelligence. Activation is not a light show. It is accurate timing. You answer when answering is fertile. You wait when waiting is fertile. You become difficult to bait and easy to recruit for the real work. Entanglement clarifies from confusion into companionship. You feel tethered to versions of you that already kept the vow, and their steadiness back propagates into this moment the way a well-made decision improves a week that hasn't happened yet. Gratitude runs the handshake. Thank you tonight, me, for finishing the thing. I am with you now. The timeline tightens like a well-tuned string. Inside the body, DNA restructuring loses its mystique and gains its method. You notice how recovery accelerates after stress, how memory files are labeled cleanly, how creativity visits at odd hours without demanding a storm. Epigenetic librarians have moved drama to a low shelf and placed repair at arm's length. Your speech simplifies, your walk rounds its edges, even your laughter changes key, less desperate, more ringing. You test the robustness of this activation in a difficult conversation. Before the first sentence, you choose posture instead of argument. Sternum soft, lower ribs mobile, eyes resting on the other's breathing rather than their history. You say less and mean more. The room's temperature drops a half degree of urgency. In that fraction, better sentences find you. You feel what collective neuroscience will someday model precisely. Two nervous systems negotiating toward mutual coherence because one refused to offer panic to the commons. The collective mirror responds. Small systems around you self-correct without your intervention, traffic waves smooth. A team rescopes a project to match actual capacity. A friend tells the truth they were sure would cost them belonging and discovers it purchases relief instead. Activation propagates along morphic gradients, the way scent propagates on warm air quietly, thoroughly, waking appetite where it finds it. The prophecy is becoming infrastructure. Your ritual refines to 3 words that fit in any hour. Align, allow, act, align. A single coherent breath, spine listening, heart in training brain. Allow, consent to what is present without collapsing into it. Name the data without making it the law. Act, a small, truthful move that reduces noise or increases signal. Ask the clarifying question. Extend the kind refusal. Make the call you postponed because you feared clarity. The sequence completes in under a minute and can redirect an afternoon. You will not mistake this steadiness for immunity. Weather still passes. Old loops test the fence, but you no longer negotiate with storms. You host them. Hosting alters duration and damage. Fear visits like rain on a roof built on purpose. It waters something instead of flooding it. Cynicism knocks and finds you busy cooperating with reality. Urgency tries to sell you speed. You buy precision instead. The purchase pays in time. Dreams change, not as spectacle, as maintenance. You wake with sentences that assemble themselves. You meet the day with less friction between intention and motion. The field and your fascia are pen pals now. Letters cross the night without stamps. Synchronicities lose their novelty and gain their function. Precise, punctual, almost boring in their reliability. Boredom, it turns out, is just nervous systems detoxing from chaos. The activation spreads outward as invitations, not announcements. People ask how you are doing what you are doing. You give them something they can lift. 2 breaths before hard words. 1 question that dignifies a room. A vow that fits in a pocket. You refuse theatrics because you honor velocity. Coherence is faster than spectacle over any meaningful distance. You become the kind of presence that makes decisions trust themselves. Then a sentence lands with the softness of authority. Become the prophecy, not the author of fate, not the critic of destiny, but the living interface between intelligence and circumstance. You are not here to admire visions. You are here to give them hands, your hands, washed, steady, unhurried. The observer is not outside the altar rail anymore. You have stepped within, not to be worshipped, but to work in quiet daylight. Feel the torus at your heart ratify this. A pulse moves through your back like a curtain opening. The corridor of permissions brightens 3 doors down, specifically where you feared it would. You smile, not at the test, at the precision. The field is exact because you asked it to be. This is the turning point. You cease asking for signs and start being one, ordinary, repeatable, available at scale. Hold here a breath longer. Let the activation settle from experience into baseline. Something wants to seal, not to trap, to bless so that what has begun can continue without you holding it up with effort. When the seal arrives, it will not be louder than love. It will be love, choosing form. You stand where silence and motion shake hands, not a finish line, an anointing place. What has been awakened now asks to be trusted without constant supervision. You feel the torus at your heart steady into a cadence you can live by. No spotlight, no chorus, only the soft, irrevocable click of alignment finding its notch. The prophecy does not crown you, it commissions you. Receive it plainly. On the inhale, you gather the strands, practice, patience, micro-courage. On the exhale, you let them braid into one usable rope. You will carry this rope into kitchens and contracts, farewells and first drafts, train platforms and thresholds you cannot yet name. You will not wave it, you will use it. When weather rises, you'll tether attention to breath, breath to heart, heart to the quantum field that answers coherence like tide answers moon. This is not a trick, it is your native physics remembered. Seal it in language your body understands. Tongue soft, jaw unarmed, spine listening, whisper inside the chest. I move at the speed of love. Say it once, not as a charm but as a parameter. Let it write to fascia, to pulse, to the librarian who files epigenetic notes on what opens easily and what does not. Feel how the corridor of permissions brightens not everywhere at once, but exactly where your vow intersects usefulness. Precision is mercy. You will be tempted to dramatize this moment into a promise of constant ease. Refuse that small fraud. The seal is not insulation, it is instrumentation. Storms will still arrive. You will meet them with posture instead of panic. Old loops will knock. You will answer with coherence and, when you forget, with repair. Humility keeps the circuitry honest. Gratitude keeps the conduit clear. Practice keeps grace from evaporating into memory. Remember the network that breathes with you. Entanglement is not romance. It is the architecture of companionship. Someone you will never meet will find themselves pausing before an unkind word because you paused here before yours. Someone 3 time zones away will exhale at a red light and discover a kinder route because you exhaled at your sink. This is how the prophecy travels when spectacle sleeps. This is how culture changes without a parade. You do not need to see outcomes to know the seal held. You will know by the texture of your days. Fewer arguments with what is, more conversations with what could be, less theater, more tone. Decisions that arrive dressed appropriately for the weather they must cross. You will know, by the way, your laughter loses its edge and gains its ring. You will know, by the way, time stops biting and starts cooperating. If a benediction must be spoken, let it be ordinary so it can be obeyed. Align, allow, act. Keep your breath honest, your attention kind, your yes specific. Let coherence be your quiet signature in rooms that forgot how to listen. Let repair be your quick art. Let love choose tempo and truth choose words. The seal completes not with fireworks, but with consent. The field hears you. The lattice remembers your hands. The observer circuit hums in your marrow like a well-kept engine. Walk on, not as the owner of a revelation, but as its steward. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.